is saying they can look at your emails. Let's bring in our panel. Jonah Goldberg, at-large editor of National Review Online. Kirsten Powers, columnist for the Daily Beast, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Now, Jonah, it may be the law. It may be that the IRS is operating within the framework. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't seem like it falls within the Fourth Amendment. It doesn't seem like a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, no, look, not to get Dickensian on you, but if that's what the law says, then the law is an ass. And I think this is one of these things, conservatives like me like to beat up on the ACLU, but this is one of these times where the ACLU is doing a valuable public service by clarifying something that really needs to be fixed. That the idea that somehow in the modern age, the Fourth Amendment doesn't protect the privacy of your email communications and the privacy of your hard drive, which are the modern equivalent of your private papers, is ludicrous. And I think that this is the kind of thing that Congress actually could have a nice bipartisan moment and fix this soon before the conspiracy people go crazy, because they kind of have a reason to go crazy.
Right. Kirsten.
Yeah, but I also just am curious. I'd love to know the legal thinking behind this magic number of 180 days, why it suddenly becomes something that they can touch, but why would it be any less private, after that time period? It doesn't make any sense. If they're able to do this, then essentially they should be able to just go into your apartment and rifle through your drawers. I mean, there's really no difference. I think, if anything, we take more security with our emails. We have passwords. I mean, we do all sorts of, I have two-step verification, all these things to keep people out of it. So any reasonable person has an expectation that the government is not reading their emails. I mean, that's the reasonable expectation of privacy.
Charles.
What's interesting here is that this is both weird, amusing, and appalling at the same time. And yet, I'm not sure anybody really is to blame. I think what probably happened in 1986, at a time where email was a novelty, probably less than 1 out of 1,000 people were using it, as compared with today, are 1 out of 1,000,000. And that's probably the origin of the weird 180-degree thing, which makes no sense at all. I mean, there's no logical reason.
It's based on the Stored Communications Act of 1986, giving law enforcement officers, including the IRS, access to emails that are 6 months old.
But I mean, you're being very
either by
generous.
Court or subpoena.
So even if that's how the law was written, the fact that they're still parodying it today, though,
that's what I mean.
It should sound crazy to them.
Yeah. But look, the reason it's not evil is all bureaucracies always garner and protect and husband the power they already have. So if there's a law from '86 clearly obsolete, but allows them a lot of leeway, they would keep it. If you're look, I don't want to defend them. This is insane. It ought to be repealed tomorrow in Congress, and if not, it ought to be upheld by the Supreme Court, so it'll apply to everybody. But you can understand there are people who are trying to go after criminals, and they say, well, we're not going to open everybody's email, but let's have this, in our satchel if we need. Now, so I'm just trying to understand how it came to be, because it's surprising news. If you had asked any of us, what do you think the IRS has the power to do, if you had asked us yesterday, we would all have said, of course it can't do this, and there can't be any statutory reason why it would. So, I mean, I would attribute it to laziness, territoriality of the bureaucrats, and neglect. And now that it's out there, it ought to be unneglected and clearly repealed.
To be honest with you, before the president said what he said about North Korea today, and before the actions today, we almost led the show with this, because we were we turned to everybody and said, do you think the IRS can look at your emails? And everybody said no. And the answer is yes. They did not respond. The White House pointed us to the IRS, but James, in his report, pointed to a senior justice official who testified in Congress last month, saying that neither the 180-day rule nor the open email in a different category made any sense, and agreed that the law should be overturned.
Yeah, there's another important aspect to this, though, and I think we're all in agreement that this is one of these things that just sort of vestigially got stuck on the books, and people didn't realize what a weird cul-de-sac we got caught in. But the IRS's power is expanding dramatically under things like Obamacare. And the idea that IRS agents can, on a glorified whim, investigate your private life in relation to your health care provisions and your taxes. I mean, there's not much left of your life if the government can go and start looking at your health care and how you spend your money.
And that's where the two stories are linked. You'd think that you're living in Pyongyang.
I should say the IRS did, right before the show, get back to us and say the agency abides by the law and does not use emails to target taxpayers.
Target is a Weasley word. I'm not sure what that means. And the law as it stands allows them to do anything. So perhaps targeting has a specific meaning. It should be banned from looking at anybody's email in the absence of a court order.
Next up, is media bias behind a lack of coverage for the murder trial of a Philadelphia abortion doctor? We'll examine that next.